During the early 20th century, the Northwestern Railway was made up of smaller, private railways and branch lines. The Knapford, Tidmouth, and Marin was one such branch line. During the run of this branch line, it was kept separate from the big S&M Railway by a large chasm where the viaduct now spans between Marin and Cronk. The line continued on for a while after Marin, to allow engines to run their trains out of the way and to shunt their cars out of the way when not in use. The rails ran all the way to the chasm and ended at a set of buffers. It was run by 3 engines. One of them was named Timothy. From what the other engines told me about him, he was an old but kind engine who was painted dark gray with the number 0 on his side tanks. He was a hard worker, though he could be prone to losing his temper if something didn't go right or upset him personally. One day, his manager came and spoke to him. "Timothy, the railway doesn't have enough work for you," he said. "So I'll be placed here in the shed until further notice?" he asked. "No," said the manager. "Business doesn't seem like it will pick up in the near future. So rather than being stored here in the shed, you will be sold for scrap at the end of the week." Timothy was horrified when he heard that. "But sir, I can't be sold for scrap. I'm sure business will pick up soon. Could I not be loaned to another railway that needs another engine? Or be placed here until that time?" he asked. "Timothy, there is no other work on any of the branch lines for you, and it would cost too much to ship you to England, where work might be plentiful, or keep you maintained to wait for business to pick up. It would be cheaper to scrap you." "I'm sorry, but there's nothing I can do," the manager said before walking away. Nothing Timothy could say or do would persuade him to reconsider. Timothy was angry that he was going to be scrapped. He'd worked so hard all his life, and now the manager was scrapping him just to save money. He might be old, but he didn't feel like his time was up at all. He began to think about how he could get back at the man. Then he came up with a plan. A very deadly plan. The night before he was to be sold for scrap, Timothy was to take a late-night train from the docks at Knapford to Marin. Before he left, he spoke to the other engines, who were not pleased to hear about his unfortunate fate. But Timothy was oddly calm about the whole ordeal. "It's okay," he said. "Every engine's time comes, and unfortunately it's my time now. After this run, I shall go on and head to the scrap yards, where I shall accept my fate." And with that he left for the docks, much to the confusion of the other engines. He arrived at the docks right on time. He coupled up to the coaches and simmered while the passengers got on board. Once the last door closed and the guard waved his green flag, the driver called out, "All steam ahead, Timothy." "Sure thing," Timothy called back, and they set off down the line. Timothy was enjoying himself. The coaches ran smoothly and clattered quietly behind as he puffed along the quiet countryside. As Timothy approached Wellsworth, the driver began to put on his brakes. But instead of coasting to a stop, Timothy kept going. His driver called out, "Timothy, what are you doing?" Timothy didn't reply and concentrated on his plan. He began to go faster and faster. He was going so fast he charged up Gordon's Hill without slowing down. The coaches rattled and shook as he raced on. The guard applied the brakes, but Timothy kept going. As Marin came into view, the driver and fireman knew what lay ahead. The driver called out one last time, "Timothy, don't! You'll kill us all!" But Timothy still didn't relent. The driver and fireman tried all they could to let off steam, but nothing worked. As they neared the chasm, Timothy's safety valve opened, letting off a loud shriek before it was drowned out by the sound of the crash and the cries of the passengers as Timothy and his train plunged into the ravine. The driver and fireman were killed instantly, along with 16 passengers. Timothy was also killed upon impact, leaving no answers as to what really happened. The accident was blamed on aging equipment. The branch line paid welfare to the grieving families and went bankrupt as a result. A couple years later, the newly formed Northwestern Railway bought the line, among others. The engines on the branch were kept in service and later sold to other railways, but not before their story was told to me. And so every year on the date of the accident, Timothy's spirit runs again as a warning to others.